generational ending. I think the approach is noble. The idea is noble. We all agree that. I think nobody dares to come up here and say, look, smoking has certain benefits. No. Well, of course, yes. Of course, some people say, it gives you, it calms you, it's a friend, it's cool, and it's part of socializing as well. Right? I think I just googled this now. The politics behind smoking in federal government in the state. It's important to smoke if you want to get certain idea passed forward in the parliament. Very interesting paper. Maybe I can share later. Okay? But now, whatever it is, I think this is a Puritan approach. Puritan means is to purifying our generation, our youth, so that they will not smoke anymore. Now, let me just give you an example. Maybe smoking yeah, smoking is, it's just an example because this gives you harm, right? So in 1920, so the U.S. introduced a bill called banning any sale, manufacture, production of alcohol. Right? So they banned the entire country, no alcohol at all. Right? That bill lasted for 10 years. So in 1930, they uplifted the ban of alcohol. Alcohol is also bad, we know that. Of course, there are certain studies show that a certain amount is all right, but I think there's no conclusive result for that yet in terms of health. Maybe Dr. Hairu can explain that a little bit, but just to give you a perspective. Now, when you want to, so the reason in the US why they uplifted the ban after 10 years because there's so many, number one, illegal black market of drinking, selling alcohol. Number two, there is a consistent protesting, in the state, everything they want to introduce a bill, they protest. Yeah? So consistent protest. And then after that, number three, then they realized that the tax that they got from selling alcohol is lucrative. But now, since they banned, there's no more tax, right? Now, in Malaysia, the tax revenue from tobacco is 3.9 billion. 3.9 billion is double the state revenue for Perlis, right? So, if you have tax tobacco, you can give money to Perlis for 2 years. That's good. You don't have to think, right? Because you already have. Now, as much as we know that introducing this bill is really good because nobody can say it's bad. But the problem is that learning from other countries like Czech Republic, the United States, and then Bhutan, which is banned smoking. But there's a big difference between Bhutan and the one in New Zealand, like what Dr. Harris mentioned. Now the first country was introduced generational endgame for banning smoking uh, in 2008, wasn't it? Sorry, uh, if I get it right. So, but the problem is that, all right, learning from this experience that we had before, and my concern is always the sustainability of the business, right? So, how long can we sustain? Because we already have certain experiences when we want to ban, because ban is good, but the problem is that arise later, all right, is always associated with economic cost, number one, and also freedom, of course. Lah. When you ban smoking, if you guys remember last time when we are not allowed to smoke in eatery area, so a lot of people actually feel being discriminated. That one is just it's not banned, yeah. It's not completely banned tobacco, but it's just restricting smokers not allowed them to smoke in public eateries. So there's a lot of you can see that the mama shop decline in sales because people want to sit down and smoke. Look at how can you eat with the food, for instance. Yeah? So I'm not an fan, but it's just that this is an example. So maybe we can have further discussion later. Bill is good. Bill is really good. It's obvious. It's a Puritan approach. Puritan is purifying our society, no longer exposed uh, to tobacco or vaping. Vaping is, I mean, vaping is, of course, is a new trend. And then, of course, it's health factor, and also, yeah, not to waste your money on something that's really harmful. The ban is clearly has an advantage, but the problem is when we ban something, the classic example of any ban is that number one, loss of resources, 3.9 billion tax revenue, right? Number two, of course, the rights of an individual. Of course, this is the questions of life versus choice, right? So I don't have choice anymore right now. Okay, and last but not least, of course, is the black market issue. So, but the black market issue, black market issue sometimes is very tricky. Now, I give you an example in Malaysia, in Sabah. All right, even though now there's no ban, but you still have illegal cigarettes coming in. Right. So just imagine if you have if you ban this, so the increase of black market obviously will be it will be a new trend in the black market. And I think last but not least, I just want to conclude what I just want to get a point from Dr. Hairul just now. Now in Malaysia, we have 21.3% people who smoke, right? And then Singapore, 11%. The price of cigarette in Malaysia and Singapore, Malaysia is the second highest to Singapore. Now, price taxing does not guarantee can reduce smoking. But the problem is, what did Singapore do? That even though, I mean, they still sell cigarettes, there's no banning, but the trend is decreasing. I think this is what we have to explore later. We can talk about it. Okay, all right. So, yeah, back to you, Fatih.
Okay, thank you, Professor, for your fascinating perspective regarding this bill. Um, okay, from what we can get from what Professor Fidausi Sufyan stated just now, it is a very good introduction actually from the Ministry of Health to introduce this bill to prevent smoking. But I understand the concern there on how will the sustainability of the bill itself on we know that as stated just now many countries have has actually introduced a few bills that are related on restricting and also ban smoking and even alcohol. But there will be an issue on the sustainability of the bill itself, on how long the bill will sustain in our country, because we are literally facing people and we regulating their habits. So I understand about the concern. And also, before we continue to the next question, just want to share with the participants here who also are actually going live in the YouTube platform, and also in the chat box. There has been put a link that relate to the generation endgame bill that stated by Dr. Hairan Nizam just now. So for the participant that want to refer throughout this session, you can get the bill in the chat box. Okay, so we continue to the next question for Dr. Muhammad Hairul Nizam. So, in today's context, what are actually the real push factors for the Ministry of Health so that make they come up with this generational endgame bill? Is that the latest issue on the legalization of the e-cigarette that was made during the 1st April this year, actually one of the push factors to introduce this bill to our countries? Thank you, Fatia. Thank you, Dr. Fidausi again. So as actually, the generation endgame comes before the exemption of vaping from the poison list in 1st of April 2023, just recently. This idea was tabled last year, and let me show you something on the slide. Actually, the reason why we we having this the generation and game concept. So, okay, it kills smoking itself. Kill 8 billion people worldwide and cost 1.2 million died because of the second-hand smoker. So you can see that the numbers worldwide, 8 million die because of the smoking, and also 1.2 just because people surrounding the smokers itself. And in Malaysia, we have 27,000 deaths every year or annually just because of the disease complicated by the using of the tobacco products. And this is all the kinds of the e-cigarette. In the evolution of e-cigarette, you can see the fancy, the trendy kinds of the e-cigarette in the market. You can see the way it promote, especially towards the youngster. And you can see how it come in toys, shape, and so on, and even in the pudding and with chocolate caramel, something nice. But when you open it, it's in the nicotine in the package, and you can say that the numbers or the youngster using the vape in the country is an increasing trend. And we also want to come to the tobacco endgame concept, which is to reduce the prevalence of smoker less than 5%, to end the tobacco commercial sale, and denormalization of smoking culture, and want to have the zero exposure among the children. So that is why we came with the concept of generation endgame, in which, as you can see, the difference between what we have now, the control of tobacco product in the Food Act. This is the Food Act. We have the tobacco control of tobacco product regulation placed in the Food Act, because we don't have the tobacco act at the moment. So we placed in the Food Act 1983, in which there is a section for minor, which is a prohibition of sale, buy, and possess any tobacco product less than 18 years old. And whenever they are more than 18, so they can smoke, they can buy, they can possess any kind of smoking products. In the current bill, in the smoking of product for public health bill, they have a provision which is ZEG. They cannot permanently for the entire life, they cannot buy, or they cannot sell, they cannot purchase, they cannot smoke any kind of tobacco product for the entire life. Graphically, this is what we meant. You can see that those born 1st January 2007 onwards, they cannot smoke. However, the ban is not for those born before that, meaning for our generation, born before the 1st January, we can still smoke, we can still buy, we can still possess any kind of smoking products or vape and so on. So the industry actually can still sustain for at least 50 years. 50 years. So when industry comes to us, as they said, this beer will actually kill the industry. No, not exactly, because why? You can see that the industry or the tobacco industry itself, they can sustain more than 50 years. And to be bear in mind, and that tobacco industry is actually a sunsetting industry, and countries like us, Malaysia and so on, shouldn't just rely on industry that harm to the community, to its citizens. And for those who born first in 2007 onwards, which is the generational end game, they are not yet exposed to nicotine product or any kind of tobacco product. Nicotine is really, really addictive. It's something high dependent as compared to, it is the highest most, the highest dependency as compared to heroin, nicotine, and so on. So that's why when somebody was exposed to nicotine at a very young age, they are tend to be dependent on the nicotine itself for the entire life, or maybe for few years. So that's why when we put this generation end game starting 2007 onwards, they are the generation that were not exposed or not yet exposed to the nicotine. So this generation are protected. So whenever they are protected, they are not exposed. So this generation will carry on, and the ban or the prohibition of smoking products for the entire life. So the generation engage concept to sustain. Back to the Dr. Firdaus regarding the
human right issues. As we have discussed with the Attorney General Chamber, the human right concept is not for this harmful product. Meaning, when government are introducing a policy to protect the human right, to protect the human health, to protect its community from something illegal or something which can harmful to the community, especially like uh, uh, drugs and alcohol. And in this context, we are talking about smoking, which is also dangerous to the community. So it is not really against the human right. It's actually protecting them, and also not discriminating, because we put an end to a generation born 1st January 2007. So they're not discrimination between those who were born before or after that period, because we already have some protection for that. And the third issue was race. Okay, as you can see that the numbers are increasing. This is what I meant just now. And the numbers, this is what we have projected from the Ministry of Health. We have studied, we have a research conducted together with the Universiti Putra Malaysia. What if the status of the tax rate increase or co? At the moment, status of for tobacco tax in Malaysia is around 49.4%. As I mentioned just now, we have been the party for WHO FCTC, and what have we outlined in the WHO FCTC is that the parties or the country parties should rise the tax to at least 85%. But we are actually at 49.4% since the last 2016. Since then, we don't have any more rise on tax. Why? Because it's always come to the issue of illicit trade. Whenever we come to the idea to increase the tax, the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Finance will listen to the industry that whenever the tax rise, the illicit trade will increase. But bear in mind that the illicit issues is actually is just a propaganda by the tobacco industry. And the illicit, yes, is because of the lack of enforcement, as also lack of enforcement from the custom department and also for the local authority. Because why? This is the issue, lack of this didn't strengthen the border, the entrance of the country entrance from the KLIA and so on. So that's why the illicit trade become increasing in number. But let me show you another research when we conducted. This is UPM. Can you see the slide? Okay, this is also another research by University Putra Malaysia. It shows that the red line is actually the total cigarette consumption, and the blue line is the retail price per pax. Whenever we increase the tax and also retail price, the numbers of cigarette will reduce. The number of smokers in the country will reduce. So it's actually this idea. That's why in Singapore, the price for one packet of cigarette is actually $40, $40 and higher actually. And in Australia itself, the tax is also high, so that the numbers on also the numbers of smokers also less than ours. And of course they have the enforcement on the on illicit is really is good actually. So that's why they can come to the lower prevalence of smokers in the country. Back to the issue of economic burden. Okay, so apart from this is what has been projected. We have conducted a study as well with Unit in 2007, and this is the cost, the treatment cost for at least three diseases caused by smoking itself, which is lung cancer, heart attack, and COPD. In which in Malaysia we need to spend at least 8.77 billion in 2030 just to treat these three diseases. Uh, in fact, when we have this kind of new product or e-cigarette products, we also have a new disease related to the e-cigarette, which is called the e-cigarette cigarette and vaping associated lung injuries or EVALI. So we have few cases in the country. So to date, we have 17 cases. And whenever we did study, the average duration spent in the hospital was 12 days. And this is the amount that they need to spend, which is 150,000 per 12 days, 12 days stay. So this is the numbers or the projection that we need to spend 8.77 billion. And this is the tax from the tobacco as compared to the treatment cost by the diseases caused by smoking. And we are actually negative 3.54 billion when we compare the tax from the tobacco to the treatment cost for the diseases caused by the smoking itself. So this is the reason why we need to have this generational endgame to be passed in the parliament very soon, so that the numbers can be reduced, the younger generation can be protected, and they are from nicotine dependent, and we have less numbers of smokers and also vapers in the country, hopefully in the future. So with that, Fatin, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Harun, for your fascinating perspective just now. So we can actually learn few research that has been made actually on why do we need to have this bill in our countries in order for this country to help the well-being of our youth generation, and in which we are actually moving towards reducing the number of smokers, and even as stated by Dr. just now that our country is actually borne by high treatment costs on the diseases that was associated by the smoking itself. And we can see other than the person that was smoking itself get the disease, or we also face the second-hand smoking diseases that are related. So it actually, I agree with your opinion, what Doctor said just now on the treatment cost that we are actually born in, which it move towards 100,000 that our country need to bear the cost and so on. So that is why we need this bill to pass in the parliament, so that it actually can help a little for our country. So we continue to the next question to the Associate Professor Dr. Firdausy Sufian. Um, this one is related to the discrimination and also the human rights on the introduction of this bill. So as mentioned by Dr. Hairunizam just now, he stated that this bill actually did not lead to discrimination because we are actually protecting the generation. So it was their right and the people right to have a safe environment for their kids and for the future generation. But what has been an issue in this country is that according to the Article 8 of Federal Constitution itself, it stated that no law shall discriminate against people. However, this bill was focusing to the generation that was born after 2007. So people will be claiming that this bill will be discriminatory and and it can be seen as unconstitutional. So even though it actually protecting the right of the people to have a safe country. So what is your opinion, Professor, regarding this discriminatory and unconstitutional issue?
Well, when we talk about freedom and rights, of course, they are broad implications of that. They're bound to cultural, bound to context, and bound to many things. Rights of LGBT is a right in the Western world, right, but not necessarily in Asia. Right. So yeah, I agree. When we talk about when introducing this bill, basically is to protect those younger generation, especially in 2007, when they're 15 years old, right, and then gradually taking out tobacco until you and I, Fatim, including Hairul, passed away, then the end of tobacco. Now, before we talk about that, I would recommend all the students here should watch the Netflix movie Thank You for No Smoking. Have you watched that before? It's based on true story. inspired by true stories as well. So you can see how powerful the lobby is in the tobacco's lobbyists in the U.S. Parliament and the U.S. Congress and also in the World Health Organization. Right. So I think that one, hopefully with this generational game, we can also put a full stop to this lobbyists. But look, this is how they make money. This is how they want to continue. I mean, any corporate, any business entity, the objective is to make money regardless of your health. All right. Well, they always can justify in certain aspect. Look, okay, we might probably can, they always have some justification. All right. In the U.S., for instance, the amount of nicotine has been reduced so that it will create, it will have a lot less harm for you to smoke, so that you can continue smoking and continue. Right now, um, let's look at life versus choice. Of course, the AAM, the idea, like I said, is Puritan is to grow life. So we have a good life and then a good, healthy life, right? So I'm pretty sure our EMA students, none of them are smokers, right? If you are, you better quit now because later no more cigarettes or even vaping, right? Now, my concern is always when you ban one thing, it's always a sort of, rights, right? Now we can be creative. Before that, but now we can be very creative. I think our policy maker is creative to come out with a generation campaign. I think this idea derived from New Zealand, right, to give an inspiration to our minister to put a full stop to tobacco. Now, when but rights of an individual is very creative in a way. They always associate with another thing. For instance, at the age of 18, you can drink alcohol, right? But while this generation in 2007, when they grew, okay, 15, 16, 17 years old, the sale of cigarettes still available, isn't it? So they're still exposed, they still see it, vape is still there. Then they start to question, look, um, why I can drink but I cannot smoke? For instance, and this is just an example. I was giving this is writing, we shouldn't talk about alcohol. But for academic discussion, also policy discussion, I think it's all right. So they start to question, look, why I cannot smoke, and then why I cannot smoke is a choice that I have. I'm working now, I'm paying tax. Why I cannot smoke, but I can drink, for instance, right? So then it becomes another issue of a younger generation. Look, okay, what we in fact, smoking is okay because it's a choice that I can. I can. This is my choice, but it's my choice. But government now stopping it. Right now, it will create another problem. Then they will start to question again about the generational endgame. Now, we have to remember this generational endgame is still at a very young policy, right? A very young law, right? To be honest, but there must be a point of departure for us, for the world to put a full stop to smoking. But the problem is what we have learned before, all right? When we ban smoking, for instance, Bhutan, for instance, I give you an example, right? There is no generational endgame, but probably this one can give us some perspective. 2004, they banned smoking, no sale, no manufacturing, no distribution, no transporting, no productions of tobacco to anyone. In 2020, COVID hit, tanked the economy, and then they realized that because people stay in the house, and then some people, smuggle cigarettes, and then they start smoking. And then the country realized that, look, oh my God, people start smoking now. And then that is good way to tax again, it's a revenue for the country. Then they uplifted the law, right? Now, again, it's always the questions of sustaining this law. No, I'm all out for this generational endgame, right? But my concern is that when these 15 years old, they grow another 3 years. Say, just we keep, inshallah, this bill passed this year, all right? So another 3 years or 4 years, all right, this 18 years old, younger generation, after 4 years, then they're 18, they are 18, they are free to do most of the things in life, all right? Of course, then sales of cigarettes still available, but they cannot sell to them. So when you cannot sell to them, who will say they want to smoke, right? They or they saw in the TV, they say they saw Johnny Depp smoking, very smart, very cool, or might probably influenced by other things like, right? Now they want to buy, they cannot buy because they are barred, right? So here comes the the illegal market allow you to sell. I agree with Dr. Hairul. It is a propaganda of the tobacco company. Right? If you watch that no smoking, thank you for no smoking Netflix will give you a very comprehensive and very insightful way how these lobbyists actually push for cigarettes so that it will not be banned. I mean, not banned. I mean, you continue the sales of tobacco. Yes. So because sometimes you also have to think sometimes the illegal market is also come from the manufacture of tobacco too. So it's tricky lah because we don't have a conclusive or evidence to show that how they are associated with one another. But look, the cigarettes come from that company. So anyway, so this is where it becomes complicated when the rise of black market. Now, it is true, it's a propaganda, but it's real. The reality is real that the black market is there. My concern is this younger generation are exposed to smoking again, right? So then how we want to then it create another issue, the rise of the black market, right? Now, black market government cannot control number one. All right. And then it becomes problematic later. So and then after that, the younger generation, maybe after 5 years, because after 5 years, your generation and I still exist, maybe say tobacco is still there. Then they start to think, I think it's okay lah to smoke. I think. I mean, this is just a perspective. I'm just taking an experience from all the stories of banning cigarettes, right? So they will start. Then they will start to question the government again. All right. Then why not we allow? But look, there are countries that are very strict with cigarettes. Australia for vaping, recently they banned vaping. Vaping can only be sold in pharmacy for medical purposes only, right? In Australia, in the cigarette package, there is no brand at all. It's like blank, right? Because they believe out of sight, out of mind. They try to reduce smoking as much as possible, right? So to me, this generational endgame, it must attach with education and a very strict punitive approach. So not punitive, like really discriminatory lah. In that way. So Australia, in the cigarette package, all right, in the cigarette pack, there is no brand at all. Malaysia, they have the name, but they have a very scary, photo, lung disease, tongue problem, that, and other problem associated with cigarettes. To me, it's not enough. You have to make it a full photo of that, so people will be, afraid of. It's like a deterrent, all right, deterrent. So at the same time, it's always goes down to education. So teaching people, I think part of the syllabus maybe in school, you have to incorporate like the whole chapter talking about the bad and the disadvantages of cigarettes, right? This is very important because for the past century, when we look at for the past decades, yeah, and also we look at it, people try to ban cigarettes, but through tax, it's not enough. People still smoke. If you like Dr. Hairu say, the more you tax, and then there's propaganda from the tobacco company say that black market will become more prevalent. So I think it boils down to a very strong. It's not just campaign. Campaign is not enough. It must be education. It has to be mainstream. All right. in our syllabus at a very young age. We talk about the disadvantages of cigarettes. Disadvantages of cigarettes. I know it's already there right now. All right, my son, when I look at it, all right, the book, well, there are chapters talking about cigarettes, but to me, it has to be reinforced and being told every day if you want this generational endgame, right? Policy has to be there. It has to be a point of departure. This is a point of departure when we put a full stop to tobacco, right? Education must be attached with it. But again, there are always problems associated, which we cannot foresee now, but we can tell from the past experience of any ban or any prohibitions of, harmful substance like alcohol, tobacco. It will come back because of a very strong lobbyist, very strong economic considerations. Always hold down the economic consideration, and this one always appeal to country because it has something to do with the state, to the country coffer, right? So there is quite complex, yeah, when we want to consider this. But in the end of the day, right, freedom or has its own interpretation, right? But whatever it is, things can be very complex in the upcoming years. Let's see what happens.
Okay. Thank you, Prof, for your thoughtful opinion just now regarding the if we implement the generational endgame afterwards. So, as what we can learn from what Professor Firdaus Sukan stated just now, the actually when we introduce this bill, we cannot run from the the establishment of the black market itself. As we know that people might question themselves on why do they cannot smoke, even that it was actually for some people smoking was like a good for them it was good in terms of releasing stress and so on. So when we tend to stop this habit, it actually can lead to the black market, and it cannot be denied that even the younger generation can be exposed to the black market itself, since they they actually want to smoke even though we introduce the bill itself because the for some people the age of 18 years are actually the age that they are waiting for, because it was the age where their parents actually give the permission for them to smoking, and they can start to drive, drink alcohol and so on. So when this bill will introduce, there will be like, why do it is the age that I was waiting for, but now I cannot do that. So it is what that actually lead to the existing exposure towards the black market itself. Yeah, and then we move to the next question for Dr. Hairul Nizam. So, from the perspective of healthcare itself, how will this law contribute to our country's health, despite the fact that we know that this bill will help in terms of the disease that most smokers are exposed to, and even like the new disease that was emerged like Valley that was stated by Dr. Harizan just now that related to the e-cigarette. So actually how this law contributes to our country's health if we implement it, other than it could decrease the cost of the health our healthcare, maybe in terms for the society and so on.
Okay, as a medical practitioner, it's it's a must for me to talk about the health effects of the smoking. And as we all know that I've mentioned just now, smoking kills more than 8 million, and also 1.2 million die because of the second-hand smoker. And also we have costs that we need to bear because of the treatment cost. So let us see what are the impact of actually smoking have to the to one's health actually. Uh, Let me show you something. Sorry. Okay. Okay, this is all the impact of smoking from head to toes. We have the cataract, we have the even we can have stroke and so on. You can read, you can find this information from anywhere from the MOH website and so on. The impact of smoking kills more than half of the user, and also the reason why we need to put the smoking itself cause and risk for infection, whereby those who are smokers they are higher risk to get the post-surgical infection. They can get easily tuberculosis, sexually transmitted diseases, and also the meningitis and so on. And this is what I meant just now. As you can see, that the nicotine is the higher most, or the most dependent compared to other substance like heroin, cocaine, alcohol, and so on. So whenever we put this ban to generational endgame, we are actually putting the generation to be more healthier, and in fact they are more productive. They are not exposed to any kind of diseases, as I mentioned just now in the first slide. And this is the e-cigarette. Just now we're talking about the conventional cigarette. Now is the e-cigarette, even though they contain these four products, which is the nicotine, the PG and VG, which used to produce more vape, and also flavors to attract. To your information that we are in the country, we have at least 8,000 flavors in the market at the moment, and from these 8,000 flavors, we have the most sale is the fruity base. Like we have this the strawberry, we have this the blackcurrant lychee, we have even breast milk flavor as well. So this is used to attract a younger generation. So and from this container, the PGVG, they comes with the they even though we call that generally accepted, recognized as safe or grass, but they have the side effect per se. They also have their own side effect. Like PG, they have the immediate effect like irritation to the ear, to the throat, and long effects such as the chronic lung disease, asthma, and so on. And they even produce formaldehyde, which is used to in the for the crops lah. Yeah. And the glycerin usually we use for makeup, for the makeup production and so on. So they can cause skin irritation and organ damage for prolonged use. Flavors we use in the baking cakes and so on. Whenever they use in e-cigarette, they can cause inner cells like brain and lungs and so on to die and cause in long term they can cause cancer, and method of interaction can produce so much other substance. And bear in mind that these products, these four products, when they interact each other, they also produce byproducts, which also dangerous to the human health, because some of them we have conducted a research with the University Teknologi Malaysia, whereby among the 50 most famous brand in local market, whenever we take from the market, we did research, and it shows that from these four chemicals, they produce side products or byproducts that are more dangerous, that can cause irritant to the lung, to the skin, and so on. And they're even corrosive to the human. And this is along the way. From 2019, we also conducted a research in which it shows that the smokers are higher risk to get complications whenever they have the COVID-19. There are 2 times higher complications to get the acute respiratory illness, or acute respiratory distress syndrome, acute kidney injury, and also lung injury, liver injury. So this is why when we put the generational end game, we are looking at the health impact for the ones, for one's community. And apart from that, there are also secret parts in the country. So the secret parts which can pollute, can cause pollution to the environment. So we are talking about the environment as well. So whenever we have this generation end game, it can prevent the country from being polluted from the secret parts and the electronic e-cigarette, because we don't have proper way to dispose the e-cigarette the e-cigarette, the used e-cigarette in the country at the moment. So whenever these products used, they are thrown away, so they can cause the e uh, e e-cigarette side effect and so on, e-waste and so on. And also whenever we're talking about the health, the generation end game that putting we protected from the nicotine from the smoking products, they will become more productive. They are the less chance to get upper respiratory tract infections and so on. So the country will be more productive. In fact, they can earn more to the country. So back to you, Fatin.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hairul Nizam, for your valuable insight regarding the disease that actually can relate to the smoking and e-cigarette habit. So in which it actually a lot of disease that was beyond our knowledge, in which we only know that smoking could cause a lung effect and heavy breathing and so on, but it actually the effect of it is beyond that we know, in which it actually could lead to skin effect, ear, nose, and even to our eyes. And even the introduction of e-cigarette itself will also bring diseases to its people, and it's just not to the community but also towards our environment. So in which it was an issue that need to be curbed because it's not an easy thing to handle when we are dealing with the effects of something that give bad impact to our countries, right? So move towards next question to Professor Dr. Firdaus Sufian. So, as what Dr. Firdaus has stated just now, actually, he has give the on how the implementation of the law could be, in which the country should not just focusing on campaign, because campaign is like did not give much impact to our society. So the government could like exposing the youth by introducing syllabus that are related to smoking in the education system and so on. So, but regarding this implementation of the bill, in your opinion, Professor, how does actually okay, since this law actually targeted the youth, so in terms of the implementation, the youth, they can actually ask the older people to get the substances for them, because we know that we just focusing on the youth. So the like what Dr. Hairunizam shared just now in the slide, the older people are actually they are allowed to get the substances. So the younger people might ask for help to get the substances. So how the implementation of it could like control the younger generation from that situation lah. And also be the domino effect when we introduce this bill, especially for those businesses that are related to cigarettes and tobacco, because this act actually um, impact the businesses related to e-cigarette and so on.
Thank you, Fatin. I think I'm not a medical doctor, but another disease associated with prevent this the cigarette is also pinjam disease, lah, because they're so expensive and then they have to borrow money from other people, right? And also other social problems as well, right? To me, when it comes to cigarette associated problem. Of course, the health is very clear cut. I think this one it goes without saying, cigarette is bad, right? Now, to me, like, I think it's quite obvious already when we talk about business, the economics behind cigarette, right? So the economics behind tobacco, this is nothing new. If you look at it, since Columbus introduced tobacco to the world, right? It is so. It is so important to everyone because the sensation feeling of cigarette, the coolness of smoking, and then the style and the class if you smoke, all right? So I think that one play a very important role that fit into the consciousness of human beings, and then it has been there for a very long time, all right? So I think there's a bit of lifestyle change I think we need to introduce as well. Smoking is not cool, smoking is not stylish, smoking is not a class thing, right? I think that one is very important as well if we want to kill tobacco. But when we talk about business, yeah, the business logic, like I told you already about the lobbyists in that movie, right? I also talked, and then my concern is this business people. Look, now the it's not just the business, but it's also the government. Of course, government have a bigger responsibility because they have to protect their society to be healthy. All right, so to protect against the harm caused by tobacco and other smoking related health issues. But the income for tobacco is 3.9 billion, right? That's number one. If you put in GST, wow, that would increase even more, right? So Fatin, if you are the government, the minister, right, the income is good. Uh, if you take away 3.9 billion, right, so you cannot give per list for 2 years. So you have to resort other income. You want to do that? Maybe you say no lah. By back of your head, aduh saya tu duit 3.9 billion For instance, this is a policy making way of thinking, all right? Sorry, Dr. Hairul, just to put in the policy discussion, right? And the business people, the business associates, say the tobacco, Philip Morris in Malaysia, right? So Philip Morris, on the other hand, think that look, I have another 15 years, and then after that I cannot sell cigarette anymore, and then my business is shrinking. I will start thinking how to make my business a thing, right? Just like any other entrepreneur, other businessman, they will start to think, right? Um, Maybe we should introduce marijuana, CBD. Maybe. CBD have a lot of health benefits. Do you know that? Right? So, well, at least if they venture into new business, cannabis, then one is fine, but it will create other problem. Right? So my concern is always business, the lobbyists, my concern is always the lobbyists, logic, also the power of them in the parliament or any policy making processes. Right? So because you're talking about cutting cells entirely of the next generation, no more cigarettes, right? And then the beauty about doing business cigarette is that you don't do much advertisement because the moment you hook up with it, you don't have to, we don't have to advertise. You look for it, So very simple. Good business model. Lebih baik daripada nasi lemak ataupun sate kajang. So my concern is always when we talk about business is when you cut their business, they will find something else to do or to lobby and how to maintain how to maintain their income or how to hold the bill as long as possible. Maybe they wait until the next election. You know how Malaysia politics is very interesting. Kyrie introduced that, it's fantastic, but after that dissolved. Then after that they really want to reintroduce the bill, but we don't know, all right, how the bill will be killed. Right? Now, say for assuming for the sake of this discussion, we implement this gap, generational penalty. My concern is always the implementation of it. Now, who wants to enforce it? Who will, who will penalize the source of power, source of authority? Remember when we have that law restricting people not smoking in public eateries? Now the problem is who enforce? Who say no? Is it KKM? Is it police? But police doesn't have that jurisdiction, right? Is it the local authority? Local authority, yes, might probably, but again, with some changes of law, bill. So when you they don't sell, all right. So where is it? Is it when you go to 7-Eleven? How you want to supervise it, right? Okay, that guy might probably look very old, so dia tidak tengok lah IC then they just buy. So questions of implementation is a critical point here when we want to do this. Yes, we can say we can implement this, no, but if this kedai kedai runcit, uh, their profit partly depend on cigarette as well, right? They might probably will just sell it, right? Well, of course, this one we can deter lah. There are many aspects of it we can deter. But it's always the questions of the implementation, coordinations of ministry, who will enforce, who will penalize, who will, control, right? So, as much as the business considerations, like what I said just now, but it's also the implementation issue, right? Um, Apart from it, it's also the black. My concern is always the black market because in Sabah, we have a lot of black market. I mean, even now without banning, we already have black market. Very, very pervasive. Yeah, the black market. It's not just in Sabah, like most country, like, all right. I mean, most states, all right. So we already have black market. Black market is associated with monitoring. Monitoring is an institutional issue. Now, given Malaysia institutional, we have yet to have a strong institutional reform. The questions of monitoring is always an issue, always problematic, right? Because if we can resolve, settle black market, strong enforcement, then that would be good, right? Then we are moving towards the right trajectory for this gap, generational endgame, right? Um, but with the given existing corruptional issue, and then lack of enforcement in Malaysia, I think that one might probably will somehow will complement black market. Right? So even if we introduce this, then it will still be there. All right, it will still be there, and then the business associate says, and then the tobacconist say, look, see you ban, ada juga. So might as well you uplift lah the bill. It's good for your income, It's good for the state income. Then you start to think, oh yeah. I mean, this is in a very layman discussion lah, right? Now, um, so of course, talk about business is a great loss to business, but it's also a good way to venture something. Probably they will venture into something else, all right? Because I think KKM, I think it is when Kyrie was the ministry, he was talking about legalizing marijuana because of their certain health benefits. But probably they will venture into CBD, the cannabis-based the CBD oil they call it. Yeah? Um, but we don't know, right? So it is a great loss for business, great loss for the country as well in terms of income, but as a very important health benefit. So again, it's not an easy journey for generational endgame, but at least again, I think there must be a point of departure, and let's see how can policymakers become more creative in solving addiction to cigarettes.
Okay, thank you, Professor, for your valuable insight regarding the implementation issue on and also how the implementation of it could affect the businesses that actually has start their businesses to introducing the e-cigarette since it was a trending businesses as what I can say in our country. So most of businesses start to open their business to sell the e-cigarette, but the implementation of this bill actually will somehow affect them in some way. That and also with their business thinking, they might opt for an adoption to selling the other substances and so on. Right. So thank you for the valuable insight. So just one last question for before we continue to the question and answer session for Dr. Muhammad Hairul Nizam. So regarding to what we have discussed from the early section of this discussion, so actually how can the Ministry of Health be sure that our countries are actually ready to implement this bill, especially to our community, to even to the younger generation itself, and to our countries. How do we make sure that they are ready for the implementation of it?
Okay. Sorry. Okay, thank you, Fatin, again. Okay, I agree with Dr. Firdaus that policy alone is not sufficient enough for this GEG to be success. So what have MOH have implemented so far? We introduced the education, and also it comes together with the enforcement. It should come together with the policy. So three things together so that this GEG can be a success one. So we have come with the programs in school, starting from kindergarten until the university level. We have programs like M3 implemented or was run since 2016. M3 Dr. Muda. We also have the programs called Kotak Program. If you are aware, if you are the younger generation aware that we have Kotak program implemented by the dental team. They went to all schools in Malaysia, from primary until secondary schools. Apart from they did the oral screening, they also check if there are smokers among the students. And yes, from their study, actually from the Kota programs, there are more than 1,000 to 2,000 primary school was a current smoker from each year. And for secondary school, there are 70 to 60 to 70,000 current smokers every year. Since 2016, they have implemented or they come with this program called Kota. Apart from screening, they also did intervention. Whenever the students declared they are smokers, they will be given a brief intervention in which there will be counseling part, and also they will be advised to quit smoking. So this is a Kota program. So that the students are being taught that they shouldn't involve with the nicotine or any kind of smoking product or vape and so on. But when they enter the higher education level like university or college, so they have programs like MQuick program in university, or they even have the MQuick services as in general, whereby they can get the treatment from the outlets or pharmacy outlet, or even at their fingertips through www.johnq.com, our website, so that they can quit smoking. We will encourage them to quit smoking. Yeah? This is the way of education or educating. Apart from that, we also have put some pictorial health warning on the each packet of cigarettes, like you can see. Starting from 2009, we have six sets of pictorial health warning, all real patients. Like this is you can see the abortion caused by the smoking. And also in 2013, we have another 12 sets. And for current bill, we will have another set of pictorial health warning. And the pictorial health warning will occupy the 60% of the cigarette pack and 50% of the front pack. For the current bill, we are proposing something like this, which we call the plain packaging. We hopefully to see this plain packaging come into reality. This is have been implemented in countries like Singapore and also Thailand, our neighbors country, and also Australia, whereby the picture will occupy a lot of the space, and they will only have the small brand downside, and they have all similar colors. Like this one is a muddy green color, so they cannot simply put any promotion. And we are in the process of whenever we have this bill passed, will come with the regulation in the bill in the app itself. So in the app, we will outline each detail of the how can be enforced, and for the smoking products, for new smoking products like that, maybe in future we can also produce, we can also use the plain packaging in the packet, and whereby they can have all kinds of the trendy design, also flavors and so on, maybe in the future. So that's why in the bill also we put the periodic report in the section 56. We put the periodic report because we don't know, the study is still ongoing, regarding the effects of the effect of e-cigarette and also vape to the country. If it is good for health, like say to help smokers to quit smoking, maybe we can consider that this is good. So we allow the vape and e-cigarette to be used. However, if there are more stories or more research conducted shows that this is harmful. So this the GEG will sustain, the community or the citizen are not allowed to use e-cigarette and also vape for the entire life. And apart from that, we also strengthen the enforcement activities together with other ministries like KPD and HEP, and also the custom department. We also put together an educational activities with the KPM, higher education, as well KPT, and also KPWKM, Kementerian Pembangunan Wanita, Keluarga and Masyarakat, so that the generation, the, the this new generation denormalize the smoking culture, denormalize starting from home. We have the program called My House, which is stand for Malaysia Home Without Smoking Environment, in which if the parent or the father or the mother or anyone in the family are smokers, they'll be treated, and so that the child will not see anyone smoking apart from the prohibition of smoking in 23 gazetted places. We also have some cities like Johor Bahru, we have Malacca, and a few other cities which declared as smoke-free cities. So this is the way that we can educate the community, especially the GEG, so that they are ready for this GEG to be implemented, and together that with the policy in place, that we hope this generation can achieve the tobacco free game or free tobacco end game by 2040 or earlier than that, as being targeted by the global NCD target. Back to you, Fatin.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hairul, for your sharing and also insightful perspective regarding on how the ministry see the countries are actually ready or not for this implementation of this policy. So from what we can see that Dr. Muhammad Hairul has explained that the Ministry of Health has come with quota program, and they also have My House that ensuring that every home are free from smokers and that their family are not smoking. So it actually lead to less diseases related to the second-hand smokers, right? And then also we have then the ministry also have did a good collaboration with other ministries such as the KPT, KPM, and even the Kementerian Pembangunan Wanita, and also with the custom. So it was a good initiative taken to make sure that we are actually ready to face uh, the generation and game bill that are going to be implemented in our country. So unfortunately, we actually have come to the end of our time discussing together. So before we move on to our question and answer session, so I would like to thank both of our panels, Professor Firdausi Sufian and Dr. Harun Nizam, for your sharing and insight on the generational endgame policy. So we greatly appreciate your expertise and valuable contribution for this morning discussion. So before we end this discussion, I would like to open the floor for any participants that have any question that they want to ask to our panelists. or you can just write in the chat box so I can read your question to the panel. Yeah, we have one here, Muhammad Fahmi. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Fatin. Um, so I think my question would be more suitable probably to Dr. Nizam lah, I think, because as the discussion goes by, so it made me think of one thing. So here's a question lah, Dr. Nizam. So there were countries that permitted the sale of date products, but they have strict regulation on restriction on tobacco, and some examples include UK, New Zealand, and Canada. So these countries actually they recognize vape as the harm reduction tool. But anyway, as I believe the GEZ on Malaysia isn't the same because they aim to put a ban on vape products also. So my question would be, could it lead to spillover impact with people? They don't have any choices anymore right now, but they still have the addiction going on. So could it lead to more people buying illegal or illicit products like rokok, duduk, and so on, because there are no other alternatives? Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Fahmi. So for your question, okay. So for as I mentioned just now, the TEG itself, or we call the generational end game, the GG was previously used by the previous minister, so it was not in the context now. But the generational end game was meant to prohibit or to protect the community from the use of new smoking products such as vape, electronic cigarettes, and so on, and as well as the conventional cigarette like cigar and so on. So there are, yes, I agree that there are some countries like even the UK, the first country that have implemented the smoke-free generation for those who were born 2007 and 2009 onwards. They banned the smoking, the use of tobacco only, not the e-cigarette, because they recognize the vape as smoking or harm reduction. But for us in Malaysia, we don't recognize vape and e-cigarette as harm reduction. Why? Because this generation is not supposed to be exposed. So the way you should handle it with the harm elimination, because vape itself, as I mentioned, they comes with dangerous side effects. There are still studies ongoing because this vape and e-cigarette it just come into in the market from 2013, now 2023, only 10 years apart. 10 years. We've seen that to produce data or to come with a long-term side effects, they usually need at least 20 to 40 years. So with only 10 years apart, so we don't know. That's why studies is still ongoing. So for time being, we don't want to expose this new generation from the harmful effect of the vape from the start. So that's why we not recognize the vape as a harm reduction, but harm elimination. It should be harm elimination. Yes, I agree that there are some propaganda or some idea that whenever we put this generation in game, there will be more of the illicit trade in the market. But bear in mind that if this generation are not exposed from the beginning, any kind of smoking products, they will not use and they will not hook or they will not depend on these nicotine products. So they will not use or they cannot contribute to the illicit trade. So that's why we want to put an end from the beginning so that the illicit trade in the end will also come down, because this generation are not yet exposed. So they are not smoker, they are not yet a vapor. So for those who are already smoker down there, outside, out there, so they will be given treatment from like the nicotine replacement therapy that have been exempted from the Poison Act in 2022. So we make them easily available in the market for the smokers to get the treatment, the nicotine patch, the nicotine gum, so that this is the way that the treatment or the quit smoking service should be tackled, because the nicotine gum and nicotine patch, even though they contain nicotine, but it is a lower dose compared to the vape and also cigarette, because whenever you see the the graph, there is a graph. Whenever a smoker have a first cigarette butt, the spike will be there and come very fast as compared to the nicotine replacement. Even though they sustain, they release in a short duration, but it can sustain longer in the bloodstream, and this will later on make the smokers less dependent or less hooked to the nicotine in the cigarette and also in the vape. So that's why hopefully that with this GEG, the illicit trade will also end soon or later.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nizam.
Okay, thank you, Doctor, for your valuable answers now. So we move on to the next question from Siti Shafina binti Muhammad Zaki. So she said here is, how will the government work with healthcare providers and public health experts to monitor and evaluate the impact of the bill on the health outcomes of young people in Malaysia?
I guess the question will be to me. Okay, so for the impact of this GAG, actually, we have we have this circulating or guideline from starting last year, 2022, September last year, in which all diseases related to the use of e-cigarette and also vape product, any diseases like um, uh, seizure or vomiting or abdominal pain, they should be notified to the Ministry of Health so that we aware that there are diseases related to these smoking products, and also that's how whenever we come with this kind of surveillance, we know that this is this vape and also e-cigarette is dangerous to the human health. We can do actions. We can straight away put an end, or we can ban this the use of vape and also e-cigarette in the country. And apart from that, we also monitor from the Kotak program. They have the smoking numbers that I mentioned just now. They monitor the smokers in schools from the primary till secondary schools. So at the same time, we will conduct the national level research or mobility survey this year, and which called the GATS or Global Adult Tobacco Survey, and also National Health Mobility Survey this year. So in this monitoring, we can see that the prevalence should come down by maybe soon, whenever this GEG be implemented in the country. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. So, okay, we have another one question from Abdul Azim bin Abdul Ghani. The floor is yours.
We cannot hear you, Azim.
Hello? Okay. 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 Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay. First thing first, I would like to thank for the board panel for willing to attend our webinar for today, and have another lecture session with Dr. Fidausi the last time during my degree time. Okay. And also experience of your Sabah. Okay. Straight to the point, my question is to Dr. Fidausi itself, and how can we address the marketing and advertising tactics used by the vaping industry to target young people? What policy changes or regulation that can be put in place to counter these efforts? Okay, I think from me, that's all from me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Abdul Azim. So when we, just so you know, Dr. Hairul when we teach public policy, among other policy debate, is always about cigarettes, banning of alcohol, legalizing gambling. So this is like an eye opener for most of the students when it comes, because there are pros and cons in policy debate. It's very always interesting to talk about it. And you can see there's no exact answer to almost everything. And then even though the harm is very clear, even though all the research, whatever harm, health, detrimental health issue associated with anything, right? Um, Smoking, alcohol, and even gambling, right? Now, anyway, how we want to, I think Dr. Hairul just now they mentioned things quite lengthy about how they want to do it to counter all these um, promotional uh, activities by this cigarette company. It's always interesting. I think even in the chat just now mentioned that ada apa ni Doraemon juga, right? Kotak Doraemon. Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, when I look at it, I was also enticed by it. So I also go and look apa bani. Oh, rupanya it's like very interesting. It's so creative. Human mind. That my God, the way how they promote this e-cigarette. I think the way how we want to do it is always what Dr. Hadu has said just now. I think through regulation, and the cigarette package is a good one. I think in Australia and other countries like including Thailand, Singapore, right? I think that is the source of it's a very insightful way of how we want to counter this promotions by company comes to vaping. So they make it very deterrence kind of a promotion. Like, you put the full package, like really how bad, smoking can cost, right? And then not just that, I think in Australia, they didn't even they even closed the shelf, right? So you cannot see. So you must have knowledge of cigarette, right? You must know what sort of cigarette you like, you prefer. So when you go over the shelf, you just okay, I want Marlboro, for instance, or Dunhill, right? So if this generational end game at the first place, you're already not exposing them to cigarettes, so it's a good approach, lah, right? To put an end of smoking. So I guess number one is always mainstreaming the detrimental effects of vaping, right? And then I think the detrimental effect of vaping, I think right now, if you compare right now, yes, the vaping, the ones who sell vape, they are very creative. So, meaning to say, we need our policymakers to be creative as well, how to counteract them. And the beauty about policymakers, they hold the regulate, they can regulate, right? So I guess this is how the game is, right? So if you want to put an end to this generational end game, so you must have a game-changing policy as well. Right? So I think social marketing is very important, right? How you want to tell how bad it is, right? But I'm so surprised that there's a lot of I mean, as much Dr. Haru already mentioned this now, how bad the e-vaping or EVALI, right, associated with lungs disease, right, is bad. But there are still some movements saying that vaping is good, right? And like what Fahmi mentioned just now, like in Australia, they allow to sell vape, but for medical purposes, like reduction. So meaning to say vape is still there. The logic is the vape is still available in pharmacy. As long as you prove that, look, I want to give up cigarette and then I'm still so addicted to cigarette, so maybe the vaping can help me. Then, so the logic behind is that vaping still okay. But what Malaysia did, I think, is good because we say that look, no, any smoker coming out from your mouth is bad. So I think that's what the message was KKM trying to send, right? Um, well, I guess yeah. I think that's my answer to it. I think Dr. Hairo have more to that. How they want to come up with more detrimental, I'm sorry, more uh, stringent way of tackling the creative promotion by vaping company. Thank you.
I can add on that because under our current bill, we will come, as I mentioned just now, we will detail everything from the kind of promotion, the packaging, and so on in the regulation that will come afterwards when this bill passed. For time being, they are still keep it secret because remember, we cannot reveal to the public whatever it has been. But bear in mind that there will be a way like Prof. Dr. Firdaus mentioned just now, there will be a ban of point of sale, there will be some plain packaging, they have to buy over the, I mean, down from the counter, so, and many more. And maybe there will be some dedicated shops as well. So we will detail in the regulations on that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Fidelsi and Dr. Hairul for a comprehensive answer on what Muhammad Azim asked just now. So as we bring to this seminar to a close, so I would like to express my gratitude to all our attendees and also both of our panels for joining us even though it was virtual. So your presence and engagement actually made this discussion truly meaningful. And I hope today's conversation has shed light on the impact of the generational end game policy towards the youth and also the nation as a whole. And we always can create a better future for the upcoming generation through informed dialogue and collective efforts like this. And remember to always drive positive changes that was lies within each one of us. And we need to continue to advocate for the health and well-being of our youth, supporting policy and initiatives that actually empower them to lead towards healthy and also productive lives. So again, I would like to thank to both of our panels, and I would like to pass this session to back to Aiman, our MC for today's session. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatin Nazira, as the moderator of the event. And also thank you to Dr. Muhammad Hairul Nizam bin Abdul Hamid and Associate Professor Dr. Fidausi Sofian for the insightful information and the discussion on the generational endgame. As the saying goes, to every beginning, there is an ending. And now, we have reached the end of the seminar. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to each and every one of you for gracing with us with your presence. Your attendance has truly made this event a success, and we are grateful for your support. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to extend our apology for any mistakes or shortcomings that may have occurred during the course of the event. Now, my role as the MC for today has come to a close. I would like to conclude with wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Before we officially end this session, I kindly request the lecturer, panels, and all participants to turn on their cameras for a group photo session.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, one last time, freestyle. 1, 2, 3.
You should say no to smoking.
Okay, Okay, again, everyone do the say no to smoking post, like Dr. Hairunizam.
I know some of you still pro smoking, but it's alright.
Ready, 1, 2, 3.
Alright.
Alright. Thank you, everyone. Dr. Hairul, right? And Associate Professor Privasi. Thank you. Alright. Hope to see you all again, right? And students of AMA 704, Amas, well done. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
So,
Pleasure meeting you, Dr. Hairul.
yeah, good. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Hairul.
Yeah. Alright.
Kindly scan the QR code in the chat box.
Yeah.
For the e-certificate.
For certificate, everyone. Sign in your attendance there. Thank you.
And beloved team, see you soon.
And the team, thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Firdausy, Dr. Nizam. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye. See you. Everybody.
Okay.
Aiman dah kat mana?
Dah.
Tak boleh sebab dah set up dekat tu schedule dia tu.